Welcome to the final segment of NatureServe's data use training. This tutorial reviews the issue of data sensitivity and how it is handled to ensure the protection of rare and imperiled species. If you have not yet successfully completed segments 1, 2, and 3, including the quizzes, please do so before taking this final tutorial. If you have, congratulations. Please continue. This segment of the training is about handling sensitive data, what makes data sensitive, why it is a concern, and the ways data can be protected from misuse. In general, all precise EO data is considered sensitive. But some species are more sensitive due to the fact that they are under pressure from poaching or over-harvesting. One example of this type of species is the southwestern barrel cactus, that has been documented to occur in the southern parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, and extends into Mexico as well. The pulp of the barrel cactus has been widely used for making cactus candy. This has accounted for its destruction and therefore is protected in many areas. Vandalism or intentional or unintentional habitat destruction can also be a factor, especially when the habitat a species relies on is, in itself, sensitive to disturbance. The decline of the bog turtle is due primarily to loss, degradation, and fragmentation of its habitat, as well as to excessive and illegal collecting for the pet trade. There are many other sensitive species that are declining due to poaching and/or habitat destruction, particularly reptiles, cacti, orchids, pitcher plants, and plants collected for medicinal use. Data for species occurring on private lands can be deemed sensitive due to landowner sensitivities and/or data ownership issues that result in limitations on how the data can be shared. About 1/5 of our member programs have formal legal restrictions related to providing data from private lands to third parties. In other cases, there are agreements that data collected on certain private lands will not be made widely available. If these data are shared too widely, the concern is that it may reduce the likelihood that the landowners would allow new surveys of their lands. In addition, there are some agreements that restrict data use to ensure the respect of indigenous rights and knowledge. Finally, although many NatureServe member programs do not accept data that they cannot share at all, there are occasionally issues with data providers who won't allow the release of data. The most common example is academic researchers who will not allow data to be released until they themselves have published the information. So there is often a thin line we need to walk in order to balance the risks and benefits of exposing data. Often, adequate protection and recovery of species is dependent on access to precise data. There is no point in collecting data if it is not going to be used, and the benefits to conservation outweigh the risks when the data is used appropriately. One way we mitigate the risk of sharing sensitive data is not to provide precise locations, but to make the shapes larger so that exact sites cannot be pinpointed. A second approach is to provide precise shapes, but mask the information about which species are located, referred to as species-blind data. This may not address indigenous rights and landowner sensitivity, but may address issues with poaching, as long as other factors don't make the identity of the species obvious. One way NatureServe has tried to reduce risk is to provide tools like Surveyor, shown here, that allow a user to submit an area or shape in order to get non-sensitive information about all the species that have been documented to occur within that area. This type of generalized information for a defined area can be requested and provided by NatureServe or its individual member programs for other defined areas such as hexagons or linear corridors that cross multiple states, provinces, or territories. When precise species data is needed by a client, The primary way that NatureServe ensures the appropriate use of this data is to negotiate the terms of data use between a client and our member programs, and then document that in a data license agreement. Access to more generalized data is sometimes governed under a simpler online agreement. If you are obtaining access to precise species location data, after you complete this tutorial, you will be sent an email with the link to your organization's data license agreement. You will need to review it and indicate that you have read and understand this agreement before you become a certified data user. Next, I will cover some general concepts included in all data access agreements. Again, it is important to understand that you are responsible for knowing the terms and conditions of your own agreement. As we said, unrestricted data can be used and shared freely. On the other hand, restricted data will have guidelines associated with how it can be used within your organization internally and outside your organization externally. There are generally very few restrictions on the use of restricted data internally. Protecting restricted data that is being used internally is accomplished by only allowing a defined number of certified data users to directly access the data and to ensure that all products developed by these certified data users are labeled for internal use only. This minimizes the chance of restricted data being inadvertently provided to third parties or otherwise used inappropriately. Protecting restricted data that is being shared outside your organization is accomplished again by only allowing a defined number of certified data users to directly access the data, and for these certified data users to understand that the precise data cannot be shared in whole or in part with any third party without additional permission by the member program where the data originated. You can create and share products developed from the licensed data with external parties as long as those products either display the mapped data at a fixed scale of 1 to 5 million or greater, or display or describe known presence-absence of species or ecosystems at the scales of U.S. county, 8-digit hydrologic units, any type of grid cell unit that is larger than or equal to an area of 250 square miles or 647 square kilometers. Many data license agreements have been negotiated to include other specific defined uses that support the client's individual needs and is granted by NatureServe member programs. Again, it is important to understand the terms of your individual license agreement. Once your data license agreement expires, all data must be deleted or archived. The archived dataset can only be used to support decisions made while the license agreement was in place, and thus cannot be used to support decisions or analyses performed after the expiration of the agreement. And finally, data must be properly acknowledged and warranted if the dataset forms a component of a final product for external use. Certified data users need to use guidance provided in their data license agreement. You are taking this training in order to become a certified data user. Generally, there are 2 things you must do to become and remain a certified data user. You must complete data use training on a periodic basis. You will be notified when you are due to take a refresher of the training. And you must read, understand, and follow the terms of your organization's data license or data sharing agreement. In addition, we ask that you notify NatureServe or its member programs if you find any errors or omissions in the data provided. You are an important part of our network and critical to keeping the data as comprehensive and accurate as possible. Congratulations! You have successfully completed the final segment of NatureServe's data use training that defined data sensitivity and methods for addressing data sensitivity. Next, please click on the Take the Quiz link for the Segment 4 tutorial on the tutorial webpage. The quiz includes questions on the material that was just covered. You must take this quiz to earn credit for completing this final segment of the training. Once you complete this segment of the training, you will be sent an email with instructions on how to finalize your data use certification process. This includes a requirement to read your data license agreement and agree to the terms. Then you will be registered as a NatureServe certified data user.